Hello and welcome back to That Girl's Quilting Threads and Things. My name's Diana and I'd like to thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. So today's quilt block is my very first flower, the tulip. Alright, so please come along with me. Let's go tiptoe through the tulips together. So most of the pieces in our block are single pieces. We have a couple of different connectors that we're going to apply. And we only have one subunit that we're actually going to build. And we're going to build half square triangles, 8 half square triangles at a time. Now the one thing I do want to share with you is that I am making 4 of these tulip blocks. And you can either put them all together in a single block, very much like the picture to the right with the cutting instructions, or you can use these as individual 6-inch blocks to insert into your quilting project. So it's kind of a 2-for-1, quilter's choice, of course. All right, so let me go ahead and set these things out of the way after I introduce you to the colors. So our tulips are going to be red with a dark center, and then we have our light, scrappy light fabrics as our background, and then we have some blue fabrics to serve as our dark leafy portion of the tulips. All right, so our first step is to set these aside and to go ahead and set up our half square triangles. Now, our half square triangles are set up with a light and a dark fabric. And to do our 8 at a time half square triangles, I just did a video and I posted it recently, so I'll put the link in the description below so that you can watch that video on how to create half square triangles 8 at a time. But I'm just going to very quickly kind of walk you through that process. So I placed my 2 fabrics together, light and dark, right sides together. And me personally, I like to draw 2 lines as opposed to 1. So I drew 2 lines 1/4 inch away from the center diagonal corner to corner. So I have this nice tool here, and I just went ahead and drew a line on each side, lift up my ruler, repeat the same process in the opposing corners, and I have 2 lines. And the key thing that I want to make sure that I have is in the very center. I want to make sure I have a nice perfect square, because this is what's going to guide us for our first 2 cuts when we make these half square triangles. Since we want 8 half square triangles to finish at 2 inches, we want our starting square to be 5 3/4, which is what I've got here. So it's already pinned. I've got my stitch lines, stitch guidelines drawn. Let's go ahead and take this to the machine. All right, so for our first cut, we're going to utilize these 2 intersects for our horizontal cut. All right, this will make sure that our line is straight. Okay, and we want to make sure also that our edge of our unit, that the line there is also straight. Okay, and that makes sure we got a nice straight cut going center. All right, without moving your fabric, pick up your ruler and make a vertical cut following the same process and steps. Use the same landmarks. Align a vertical line to help make sure that it's straight. Align the outer edge of your ruler so that it goes straight through the 2 intersections going the opposite direction, and make your cut. Now the rest of it is easy, and we simply can cut in the center of our lines. Pick up the ruler line it up, and cut. The next thing that we want to do is go ahead and open these, roll them open so that the dark side, so that you're pressing towards the dark side. And you can get away with this small unit just using your fingernails or a little handy tool like this. Now remember, we will have to square these up to 2.5 inches because they will finish at 2 inches. All right. And these make up the leaves to our tulips. All right. And then now to give these a quick square up, line that 45-degree line right on the exact seam. Give me a little bit of wiggle room for 2.5 inches and make the first cut. Now if you want to give yourself a little extra wiggle room, give your starting block another 1/4 inch. So instead of 5 3/4 for this particular block, for this size, give yourself 6 inches. That gives you plenty of wiggle room in case you have a wonky seam or something like that. All right, there we have 8 half-square triangles. These are going to make up our leaves for our tulips. So let's go ahead and bring the rest of those pieces back into play. All right, and I like to set, I've got this block set up so that you are connecting pieces together. So this is a quilt block, I think you could say is a connector quilt block. We're going to build this at 4 blocks, well, one at a time, but there are 4 tulips. Again, so that you could either make a single block with 4 tulips as shown in the original picture, or you can make 4 individual 6-inch blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting my little subunits together, and I'm going to do it 4 at a time. So I'm going to start with these, all right, and then I'm going to go to these, and then I'm probably going to go to these. So I'm just going to kind of put the logical pieces together. So here we go, and I'm going to chain piece these. All right, those 2 pieces are together. So let's go ahead and finish with our outer tulip petals. So we want to put this one here. All right, let's see what we've got for our first pieces here. Let's just do a quick press. Now this is my first time making a tulip block, so there may be some learning on the fly. All right, so again, pressing towards the dark side. Okay, so we've got those put together. Now the next thing to put together that seems to be the most logical, let's go ahead and marry up these 2 pieces. These are just simple, putting 2 squares together. This is the center of the tulip. The center of the flower is always nice and dark. Pressing everything to the dark side. Your finger does a great job. Fingernail does a really great job. Putting it back to where it was so I don't lose track of where I'm at in my block. Now these are ready to be attached to this unit. So let's go ahead and take these over here. All right, let's place these right sides together. Match up my edges so that it's nice and square. All right, let's go ahead and open these up. Give them a nice, good, firm manual pressing. There's one, our last one for this little section. So what we're going to do with these, so that needs to make a square. So I'm going to place it right sides together and line up my corners. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so here we go. Make sure my corners are all nice and lined up. Okay, so let's line up that corner. Take your time. All right, so there we have that, and that's what it looks like on the other side. So if we roll it open, it should measure out at 2.5 inches square. So now that I know that this is a good 2.5 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that off, that extra piece. Since we have seams here, seems like the nesting or the seams would prefer to go towards the light. So we're going to go ahead and work with that. All right, now we've got 4 more of these to do. So I'm just going to chain stitch these and finish cutting them afterwards. Okay, those subunits are done. Now let's work on the larger ones. Same concept. We're going to make these as a connector. So once we attach these, this rectangle should end up at 4.5 inches. We line up our edges, and we have about 1/4 inch for our seam allowance over here and over here. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance this way, and we'll flip it open. All right, so that's how this test one should look like once you're done with it. So let's go ahead and cut off the excess. That is ready. And again, the seam wants to lay towards the light, so that's where we're going to let it lay. And that goes this way. So let's go ahead and finish up these these other 3 pieces following the same steps. All right, let's go ahead and press these open. Sometimes it's just easier to use your fingernail than it is any kind of a tool. I think we can see the tulip coming into shape now. Now the next thing to do is to put our rows together. I think it seems like that will be the most logical. So here we have 3 patches across, we have 2 units and 3 patches across. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the top, putting these 2 pairs together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm going to take off all my dog ears. That just reduces the amount of bulk and cleans up the unit to make it sew better. So this is how they need to go together. No seams really to match up, so just make sure that you line everything up, and we're just going to chain stitch these. Let's go ahead, open these up. It doesn't matter which way we go, so I think I'm going to press towards the dark side, which is the tulip petals. They have the larger, darker piece, so I'm going to do that. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and attach this piece. We're just going to chain stitch this, and this will complete the top row. All right, our top row is done. I think we can go ahead and let's try and press this towards the inside. When I go to put these 2 together, I'm going to press it that way to help this nest nicer. All right, there's our top row. Let's go ahead and put the middle row together. So to make sure that our seams nest, all right, this seam is pressed that way, so I will press this seam this way. That's our middle row, and we have our last row. Our last row has the stem and the other leaf. All right, since this seam is going that way, I'm actually going to put this and press this seam going that way. Again, to keep it so that the seams, where possible in this block, will nest. All right, let's attach this piece to our bottom row, and then we'll have our rows complete and ready to attach to each other to complete the 6-inch block units. To make sure, I think we will have a point to match here, so I'm going to go ahead and press this seam towards the center also. Now we have our rows ready, and I think that looks like a mighty fine looking flower so far. So let's go ahead and attach our rows. Start with our top block and place it right sides together. Line up our points, line up our edges, and where we have that one set of seams, let's go ahead and make sure that it's nice and nested. So I'm going to actually pin this one. The pin lets me know what side I need to sew on as well. So let's go ahead and match these up. And let's look at making sure when we align up our seams with our seam allowances going in opposite directions, right? That we get a nice nesting. We lock those into place, all right? And we know that they're locked into place because when we pinch it, it's nice and flat. And if we try to slide it with our fingers, the fabric doesn't move. Let's see how that first one came out. Nice straight seam allowance, and there's the top part of our flower. All right, let's finish these up. And just take your time. It's not a race. These are small pieces. When you get close to that pin, just gently roll up to it, drop your needle, take the pin out. And then while you've got that seam locked in place, take the remaining portion of your rows and just realign them back up. Top 2 rows, now we're ready to go ahead and attach this last row. Same thing, we have a couple of spots where we need seams to nest, so I'm going to be putting 2 pins in. All right, last round, here we go. Okay, here is our bouquet of tulips. You can put them all together in one block. This particular block is called the Tulip Wreath Variation. But for me and the project I'm working on, these tulips will have a spot on their own. So I'm not going to combine them into a single block. But there are many things that you can do to spice up the block. Give it a little bit more pizzazz, something like that. Nonetheless, it's quilter's choice and for whatever project that you're working on. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for watching this video, and I certainly look forward to your feedback. Go ahead and put it in the comments section. If you've got any tips or tricks to share, put that in there too. We all learn from everyone, and that's what I love about doing this work on the YouTube channel. I'm only in it to share what I've learned and hopefully learn some more from viewers like you. But until the next video, thank you again so much for watching and joining me on today's journey. And as always, may all of your quilting journeys be joyful, one stitch at a time.